Our next topic is one that you have probably not heard anything about in the mainstream press, and almost nobody thinks about it. And the topic is the morale of the U.S. troops and what that means for the future of us and our families. People who have not been in the military generally don't understand how the military really operates, and that the kind of the linchpin or the foundation of the whole military system is confidence in the leaders. The individual troop, when he's told to go take that hill, to risk his life taking that hill, he has got to have confidence that his life is being risked for a good cause. He has to know deep in his heart that the leaders know what they're doing, and they're not going to waste his life, that they are competent, and that they're honest and wise, and that he is doing this for a good cause. Well, I think one of the implications of this economic crisis, and again, as I said earlier today, what a lot of people are beginning to realize is if you've been in America for the last 2 years, you know the government isn't competent. I'm talking about both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Right. This thing started under George Bush, the Republican Party, and it's continued under Obama, the Democratic Party. And the one thing you know from the last 2 years' experience is they don't know what they're doing. It's mostly a big song and dance. They're just trying one thing after another. They're totally baffled about the mess that the Republican and Democratic parties have made over the years. Well, you know, the troops aren't stupid. They can see this too. They know that something is seriously wrong at the top.
Yes, very much so.
And not just the White House. I'm also talking about the Senate and the Congress, and especially the Democratic and Republican parties. The troops aren't stupid. They know that the orders that they're following are coming ultimately from people who are dysfunctional. People who don't know what's wrong or what to do about it or how the mess came about. And so that has got to filter down to the troop in the field. And when he's given an order to go take that hill, he's going to be saying, well, you know, is this really for a good cause, or are they just experimenting, trying something because they don't know what else to try?
Yes.
Are they throwing my life away here?
As in Vietnam, a lot of troops finally realized that they were being sent up Hamburger Hill for no good reason.
Right.
In fact, I believe there was one such assault that cost a lot of American lives. It was intended to be a birthday a birthday gift to Lyndon Johnson.
No kidding.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, they wanted a victory to hand the president, the commander-in-chief, on his birthday. And it turned out to be, you know, a great loss of American lives. Yeah. And when the troops in Vietnam began to lose confidence in the mission, that I think is, as much as the protests back home, really started to bring a halt to it, because they simply couldn't get people to go out there and do that little extra that it takes to win battles. You know, people in sales, people sometimes wonder, why do salesmen sometimes get paid more than the company president? Because there's that little spark of extra effort that you have to get from a salesman to be successful, and you have to really reward that if you expect to get it. Likewise, in a military situation, it takes a little extra, that little extra spark. It's hard to define and hard to measure that it takes to be successful on the field of battle. And without that spark, they're just a bunch of people milling around and kind of going through the motions, and they're not likely to be particularly successful. And when we lost that in Vietnam, that was basically when the die was cast for the final withdrawal. And I think we're getting there in Iraq and Afghanistan. The American people are definitely against Afghanistan right now. I mean, well over half, I don't remember the latest numbers, but it's very high towards bringing people home from Afghanistan. And what are our troops? They're the sons and daughters of the American people. And so I think that can't help but have a big impact.
Now, and what I want to point to is that the way the the declining morale of the troops would affect us here at home in an immediate way is that the troops are the foundation of the federal government's global empire. The troops are scattered. The Army alone has, now I'm not talking about the Air Force, the Navy, and all the rest. The Army alone has troops in something like 60 countries, and what they're doing there, for the most part, is propping up the governments of those countries because those governments claim to be pro-American. Mm-hmm. Well, if the U.S. troops lose their morale and begin to question whether it's a good idea to go take that hill or not because they don't trust the competence of their leadership, then that whole empire falls apart. And so this political matrix that exists in the world today collapses once the morale of the troops starts to go. Suddenly you have people who really just aren't all that interested in doing their jobs anymore.
Yes, just want to survive it.
Yeah, right.
Get out of it.
Exactly. The same way it was during the Vietnam War. It's, you know, I'll show up for work in the morning, but I don't really feel like doing very much. And once you arrive at that point, then the whole federal empire around the world gets very shaky.
Yes.
And the distribution of goods and services around the world right now is organized in a way that conforms to the political matrix. You have, for instance, the Saudi royal family in the Persian Gulf dominate the Persian Gulf, and they are the enemies of the Iranian government. And if the morale of the American troops goes and the willingness to defend the Saudi royal family goes, it's very possible you could have the whole Persian Gulf blow up and suddenly we're paying $300 a barrel for oil, or you know, $9 a gallon at the pump. Mm-hmm. So you know, this situation of the dysfunctionality of the federal government can, in this roundabout way, affect the morale of the troops and then affect the economy and affect our way of life. And I'm just saying, look out. You know, if you think that you've seen the full ramifications of this economic crisis, well, I don't think you have yet. I think there's a lot more coming.
And speak of the morale of the troops, we've seen that. I was thinking about Vietnam. There's actually a much more recent example, and that's the Soviets in Afghanistan.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, towards the end, the Soviet troops in Afghanistan didn't want to leave the base. They couldn't get them to leave the base.
Right.
They were wearing crosses because if they got caught, a Christian got a bullet instead of just being stabbed with a bayonet and left to die. And they just basically wanted to live through their tour of duty and get home. Yeah. And that was basically, when that swept through the Soviet troops in Afghanistan, is when the war was lost.
Yeah, and that was...
Even though they didn't leave for 2 or 3 more years.
Yeah, and
the war was lost.
That was the end of the Soviet Empire.
That's right.
When that happened, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think basically as our troops look at the quality of, you know, the goals that have been handed to them, I think they like the leadership. I mean, I've heard... I know many...
the military leadership.
Individual military.
Right.
One of the things you hear a lot from the Marines is that they really like their officers, that their officers are competent. Right. They're really competent. It's the goal that's in question. Is Afghanistan worth it? Are the reasons that are being given to me for being over here in this 2-bit country, are they valid? Right.
And, you know, do they trust the judgment of the Democratic and Republican parties in the Congress and the Senate and the White House, who are giving orders to their officers?
They're calling the shots. That's right.
And that's the thing. I mean, their officers, are very good, apparently, from what I've heard.
Yes.
But the political leadership is just rotten to the core. Mm-hmm.